10:30. I'll look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers for you shortly. First of all, where will the next music stars of tomorrow come from if there's no funding? Ed Sheeran is calling for more money for music education to repair what is described as decades of dismantling music. The singer-songwriter is one of hundreds of artists like Coldplay, Sir Elton John and Annie Lennox. They've all signed a letter to Sir Keir Starmer asking for greater funding. From the London Music Fund, its CEO, Chrissy Kinsella.
It's fantastic that one of the UK's most successful artists is using this platform to promote music education. There's a lot of people on the ground who've been making these noises for a long time, but having the industry support behind such campaign is really, really important. Unfortunately, funding for music education has been declining, and the priority for STEM subjects and fragmented education policies means that music education in schools and out of schools as well has just been unfortunately declining and becoming less accessible for children, particularly from low-income families. The noises coming out, for want of a better word, the noises coming out of the current administration and Lisa Nandy have been really promising, and they are enormously supportive of what the music education sector is doing. And I know that music on its own contributes almost something like 7 billion to the economy. So it's not just about an education policy, it's about the wider cultural investment. But unfortunately, quite early on, they did make it clear that there wasn't any more money available. So it's great that they've been very supportive, and Bridget Phillipson as well from the education side of things has been incredibly supportive and saying the right things. But unfortunately, they did say they weren't able to invest any more funding.
But it's the arts, isn't it? It's always been given the kind of the Cinderella treatment, as it were, compared to our musical colleagues in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I was really heartened by the statement in Ed's letter about the comparative investment in sport in UK schools in particular. And, that we have invested so much in sport over the years, and it would be amazing if we could invest equally in music. It's not just about finding the next Ed Sheeran or the next Nicola Benedetti. It's about giving children the opportunity to learn music and to enjoy music and to, be amateur musicians and audiences of the future.
The difficulty there, though, is that I would argue that sport attracts sponsorship, attracts money. It doesn't necessarily have to have public funding because there's always a sponsor somewhere. Music and being a violinist isn't as sexy as being the next sporting sensation.
No, absolutely. And I completely can see that from one perspective. But then the music industry and the creative industries themselves do contribute billions to the economy. Music is a fundamental part of our lives, whether we realise it or not, through, television and film, and it's the soundtrack to everything that we do.
What is it, do you think, about music and the arts that it's over successive generations? It's not necessarily the current government and the previous government, it's over decades. You think about the British invasion, for example, of the artists of the 60s. Let's just think about the cultural impact that we've had in this country on the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And, we're seen as some kind of beacon for that, and yet we treat it like a second-class service. Why is that? It's not necessarily a political thing. Is it a societal thing? Why?
I don't know. It's really challenging, isn't it? Because I think sometimes music is still seen as being elitist in a way that perhaps sport isn't. And I don't really know where that comes from. And I don't just mean classical music there. I just mean, kind of music education, as it were, and, organised music making in that respect. I really don't know. It's so difficult to say because, as you say, we've exported so much around the world in terms of music, and Adele, Ed Sheeran, and all artists, all kinds of artists like this. I really don't know. I think it's, more and more grassroots music organisations are closing as well. Grassroots venues and organisations that support young musicians and young artists. That's a tragedy as well, because that means that there won't be any, there'll be no platforms for these young people to develop their skills.
Well, if you look at your organisation for a start,
yes.
You look after children, I think, at Key Stage 2 or 3, I think it is, who have got some kind of musical future perhaps, but can't afford music lessons. And so you step in. Do you find that frustrating that you have to step in, bearing in mind I've just mentioned about the cultural impact of the music scene from this country?
Yeah, I do. And somebody once said to me, why does your charity need to exist? And surely it should be funded through schools. And I said, absolutely, it should be. And I'd be delighted if we didn't have to exist. I think, a lot of it comes down to the focus on STEM subjects and the fragmented policies in education that have meant that music has been sidelined. But one of the things that Ed Sheeran is calling for is an increase in teacher training and an increase in CPD for teachers, because so many schools just don't have the facilities and the skill in their teachers, particularly at primary level, to support music education. So I think there needs to be a shift in thinking as to how music is taught in the classroom.
CEO of London Music Fund, Chrissy Kinsella, on LBC News. Word from the government on this in response: we are committed to ensuring art, music and drama are no longer the preserve of a privileged few. We are also expanding the Creative Careers programme to £3 million over the next financial year to help provide even more school children with information, advice and guidance on creative career routes.
LBC News, where the